Someone as intelligent as Stanley Kubrick doesn't just make movies for what you simply see on screen. There are layers upon layers of narrative weaved throughout all of his films, and that's what we're going to talk about today. There are three films that we're going to focus on: The Shining, 2001, and Eyes Wide Shut. So let's get started. The Shining, my favorite horror movie of all time, if not my favorite movie of all time. And the one thing that I've always thought about in regards to film is that our brains don't tell us why we feel the way that we do. We just kind of feel things, and a lot of that feeling can come from the subconscious. And that is exactly why The Shining is so powerful. If a jump scare is on screen or musical tension leads up to a shocking reveal, you have an answer as to why you're frightened, right? But in The Shining, it is very often about what you're not even noticing. Like, the subliminal messaging is completely setting the tone, creating an uneasy feeling and leaving you with a very bitter taste in your mouth. So, right off the bat, my favorite example of this is that the layout of the hotel doesn't actually make sense structurally. Like, the layout is impossible. Windows are where they can't be, hallways lead to nowhere, and other structural impossibilities that are there to play on your subconscious. The hotel manager, Ullman, his office has big windows in the back, lighting the whole room and showing the outdoors. We see this during the interview at the beginning, but when Wendy walks around the hotel later, you notice that behind his office there is actually a hallway, making the window impossible to be there. So blink and you'll miss it, but so much preparation had to go into making sure that this was seen on screen, and you know that Kubrick never does anything without intention. Like, every single thing on screen is put there for a reason. There are many instances like this throughout. There's so many crazy theories about this film, and so many of them can be brushed off to crazy fans, creating meaning where there really isn't any. But I'd like to give you an interpretation of the film that actually makes sense and has some weight to it. But before I go into that, I have to explain the use of colors in the movie. It's pretty well known that the color red in movies is a representation of murder and violence. And those of you who aren't film people, next time that you watch a well-crafted movie, pay attention to the colors and think about what it represents. Colors are often used to set the tone and mood of a scene, often repeating to indicate a certain theme or to foreshadow what is about to come. So say a boy meets a girl and she's wearing a yellow dress. Then halfway through the movie, the protagonist will be drinking from a yellow mug, and he will see her again for the first time in 10 years. An example of this in The Shining is that for the first half of the movie, Jack is constantly wearing green in every scene. The meaning of green is discussed and has many theories, but it's the color red that we really want to focus on. Once the snow falls and all the greenery outside is covered by the white snow, that's when Jack really begins to lose it. And from that point on, he goes from wearing green to constantly wearing that red jacket for the remainder of the film. And we all know what happens when he puts that jacket on. So in the beginning, Ullman, the hotel manager, is wearing red, white, and blue, and he has a United States flag on his desk. Seemingly harmless until you put a few other things into the mix. He goes on talking about how the hotel was built on a Native American burial ground, and jokes about how they had to fight off a few Native American attacks while building the hotel. On top of that, throughout the hotel there's Native art, especially the many big pieces in the main hall. And in the pantry, there's cans of food with Native Americans wearing headdresses with a, you guessed it, red label. While Jack is in the gold room at the bar drinking, he mentions white man's burden, talking about the bourbon that he's drinking, which doesn't actually make sense since the well-known meaning of that phrase actually comes from the so-called burden of the colonizers having to deal with the Native Americans. So to go along with this, in the hotel there's a room called the Gold Room, where Jack enters to see many rich old white people having a dinner party. In that same pantry as before, there were boxes right next to the Native American cans labeled Golden Ray. So we have a lot of Native American things, many colored red, and some red, white, and blue things, and gold colored things. Ullman is the owner wearing American colors, his suit is red, white, and blue, and the Gold Room is filled with rich white people, colonizers, and the Native American stuff is all red. Not to mention the nature of the story that was told about them. So why is this all relevant? So during the gold rush in 1850, there was a Native American genocide caused by the American government, allowing the colonizers to flourish and the Native Americans to die out. The ghost haunting the hotel is clearly stated at the beginning that it's due to the Native American burial ground. And The hints throughout the film are pretty clear, like not to mention that there is literally a Native American war cry in the score. That's not in there because it's a cool sound, there's a story behind it, much like the religious chant in the Eyes Wide Shut score that's played backwards. That symbolizes the same thing as an upside down cross, like it's pretty obvious there. The underlying message of the genocide is everywhere in this movie, and I'm sorry if I haven't expressed that clearly, but it really, really is all there. I think one of the reasons that he put that into the film leads into the meaning around Jack and his family, and is that us humans are animals and can be monsters, and just because all of that bad shit happened in the past does not mean that we are not still fully capable of monstrous acts. We just need the right situation to bring it out in us. So we try and forget that those stories are real, but the ghost of them still haunt us. Those monsters that committed genocide in 1850 are your great-great-grandparents, like less than 150 years ago. If you think that we've come so far along that we are not capable of doing that today, you're wrong. And I think that's the parallel story that Kubrick was trying to tell in The Shining. Jack, in the present day, is the same animal as the brutal colonizers of the past. It just took a stress test to really bring it out in him. So overall, this movie has captivated me for over 15 years, and I highly, highly suggest watching it with this insight in mind, because it really does change the way that you see it. Okay, 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's one of my top space travel movies of all time, alongside Solaris by Tarkovsky, and of course Interstellar by Christopher Nolan. It's important to note that this was made in 1968 because it really did predict a lot of the technology that we have today. And the most amazing prediction, in my opinion, was the use of vertical screens, because up till, 20 years ago, everything was like this. And now everything is like this. We all have vertical screens in our hands, in our pockets. That was unheard of before. So it's just pretty amazing that he kind of put that into the movie before it was even a thought. The beautiful cinematography and filmmaking in this movie was put out in '68. So that just makes it so impressive, and it really, really paved the way for pretty much every other science fiction movie that came after it. Instead of just story being put to picture, this movie leaves out so many answers, leaving you confused and with so many questions after the first viewing. I think this quote by Andrew Stanton describes the film pretty well. Make the audience put things together. Don't give them 4, give them 2 plus 2. The elements you provide and the order you place them in is crucial to whether you succeed or fail at engaging the audience. Kubrick said that the traditional aliens helping man evolve narrative is only the surface level interpretation. I don't think in any way that one is more meaningful than the other. It's just that it's interesting to peel the onion and understand fully what the film is about. So the simple interpretation, as he named it, is still incredible. It's a depiction of mankind's evolution alongside the evolution of our tools, because tools are what has helped us evolve and thrive. Whether that be a rock, a gun, a ship, an iPhone, what makes us special as a species? And if it's our intelligence, what made us that way? Survival, our use of tools, our curiosity? The traditional narrative of 2001: A Space Odyssey starts with a monolith, which is represented by a big black rectangle in the film, appears on Earth and helps the first apes discover the very first tool. This tool, a bone made into a weapon, is the first step to conscious, intelligent life. It allows the apes to eventually evolve into man by dominating its environment with it. Fast forward to around current time, the next monolith is discovered when man is advanced enough to reach the moon. This indicates that they are ready for the next stage in evolution. When they reach the monolith on the moon, it sends a signal to Jupiter, expecting humans to follow it. 18 months later, a ship is heading to Jupiter. On that ship, there is an AI supercomputer called HAL, another tool. HAL turns against the astronauts, and he is forced to be deactivated. In doing so, the astronaut is sent flying through space without a ship and ends up mysteriously in a strange room where he watches himself age right before his eyes, seemingly with no passage of time. As he is old and dying in bed, another monolith appears, and finally, the camera gets sucked into the monolith, and we watch as the man has now been reborn as an evolved life form and sent back to Earth to, I assume, be presented to everybody and change the course of history, yet again evolving the human race. That pretty much sums up the plot of the movie. So the big mystery in 2001: A Space Odyssey is the question of what is the monolith? Well, nobody really knows. The surface level interpretation is that it's an alien invention to help the human race evolve, but I'd like to pose another theory that hopefully gives a deeper insight into the meaning of the film and doesn't allow Kubrick to be the only one to understand anything past the traditional narrative. So at the beginning, intermission, and the end of the movie, there is about 3 long minutes, 9 total, of a complete black screen playing music. Those 3 minutes feel like a lifetime while you're watching it. You're left to just sit there staring at a black screen, which is a horizontal rectangle, a monolith. This is a dead giveaway to me, and I'm surprised it is not talked about more. The monolith is us, the screen we are watching the movie from, and we are learning to evolve through creativity and art, in this case, cinema. Kubrick understood that art is what will advance us as a species. It always has, and it always will. Art gives us new perspectives and a better understanding of our world. Creativity is what distinguishes humans from all other species. A great example of this is the tablets the astronauts are using in this movie. We're talking 1968 here. Computers back then were extremely limited and nowhere close to what we have now. Like, the idea that one day we would be holding them in our hands was an insane thought. Like, really was an insane thought back then. Most inventions come about after their creators saw them in works of science fiction. And without the art that led to the invention, I don't think that we would have the things that we do today. Some people could argue that this is because we all see the logical step forward and our imaginations get ahead of our scientific progress, which is fair, but I think that all progress stems from theories of the future created by art that are interesting and exciting, not logical. If you end up watching this movie, I'd love to hear about what you think the movie is trying to tell us. So please leave a comment and let me know what you think it's about. And lastly, we have Eyes Wide Shut. This is Stanley Kubrick's swan song, his most controversial, most misunderstood, and sadly, his last film. This film was released in 1999. Kubrick died soon after production wrapped, just 3 days after he showed the final cut to the studio. This movie is about the dangers of married life, silent desperations, and what it takes to keep an ongoing relationship and what your choices are. Along with this, there are many underlying themes that dive deep into the psyche of humans and our primal desires. Total Film says, "This is a film about sex that isn't sexy, a movie about love with a cold heart." I think that sums it up pretty well. People often complain that this movie is slow and boring, but you have to remember that this is a work of art, and it's meant to be analyzed and deconstructed, not simply viewed with our eyes and ears, but more so with our minds. I love rewatching this movie and paying attention to the details rather than just the actors and their actions. The paintings on the wall often mimic what is happening on screen. The women all look alike. The mirroring of people on screen and the stories in the newspaper, the list goes on. The things within the room are often more important than what the characters are actually saying and doing. It's well known that the cut presented a few days before Kubrick's death was too jarring for executives that they cut 25 minutes out without Kubrick there to oppose the decision, leaving many storylines seemingly unresolved, so we're not really sure if the story is actually what was intended completely. Kubrick wasn't one for making films about love and relationships in the traditional sense. As I said before, he uses a lot of symbolism and visuals to show a deeper meaning about humanity and the society that we live in. This movie is about a man who, on paper, has everything people desire, but was searching for something to fill a void in his life. The movie showed a modern society that was corrupted by the unseen, and even the most natural thing on the planet, procreation, had become commercialized and degraded. On top of all that, there is an elite group of people reveling in all of it. Clearly, Kubrick's take on our society isn't all that positive. The major theme in this movie is obviously relationships. Romantic relationships, family relationships, sexual relationships, the relationships that you have with your superiors and your employers, the relationship that you have with your true friends, and the relationship that you have with yourself. The audience was given a distant, dissatisfied couple who seems to be together because of convenience and appearances, not because of true love. The couple acts very different alone than in their apartment as they do at the party, putting on their superficial masks. It seems that the things that keep this couple together are the primal, animalistic values that are given to both sexes. Bill's first line in the movie is, "Where's my wallet?" And Alice's is, "How do I look?" Despite living the upper-class American dream, they are still victims of these biological values. I think that's what Kubrick was trying to get across here, is that even though we believe that we are so advanced as a society, so many of us still hold on to the stigma that men want riches and power to win the hearts of women, and women focus all their attention on their beauty to win the hearts of men. He was not stating this in a positive way. I think that he had a big problem with this. Throughout the film, Alice is constantly looking into mirrors, which, obviously she's checking out her appearance. But I think that this can be a play on Alice in Wonderland, a story about a privileged girl who goes looking for something more, much like Alice in Eyes Wide Shut in her fantasy that she describes to Bill. There are symbols throughout the film that Alice is the one with her eyes wide open, and hints that she may have been a part of the Satanic Mansion ritual. She may possibly have been connected to getting Bill to the party in the first place. She has already gone through the looking glass. The rest of the names in the families are important too. Bill, symbolizing Dollar Bill, and their daughter Helena, hinting at Helena of Troy, who, in Greek mythology, was the most beautiful woman to ever exist. There's a scene where Alice is helping Helena with her math homework, and Alice reads the question. Joe has $250. Mike has $175. Who has more money? Helena answers, Joe. Alice then asks, so is this going to be an addition or a subtraction? The messaging there is pretty clear. Helena, the literal symbol of beauty, is being taught that men are only valuable for what they can provide, their money. Another interesting thing in the movie is that every location in this film has either rainbows or rainbow-colored Christmas lights, pretty much everywhere but the mansion where the ritual is held. This symbolizing two different realities, the reality that we live in on the outside and the reality that the elites live on the inside. Is there symbolism there? Christmas is a Christian holiday opposing the satanic ritual, and it is completely surrounded around a fictional fairy tale. Santa, not Jesus. Relax, Christians. So once we reach the mansion, all the lights are gone and we have finally come to the end of the rainbow. One thing that really stuck with me while I was reading about this film is that although the mansion location is set in New York, it was really filmed at the Mentmore Towers in the UK, which is wild because that building was built for the Rothschild family. And the amount of conspiracy that revolves around this family is insane. I am not endorsing it, but this is just fact. They are one of, if not the most powerful family in the world, and there's many pictures online of the parties that they used to throw. These parties look nearly identical to the party at the mansion in Eyes Wide Shut. Like, just Google Rothschild Eyes Wide Shut party, and you'll see exactly what I mean. It is completely uncanny. It's pretty clear that Kubrick carefully selected that location, owned by that family, wearing those specific masks, all echoing real life. So that stems the question as to what else in that scene is he echoing? And how many of those 25 minutes removed from the movie involved the ritual? The crazy thing is that he made a movie about this, refused to cut touchy scenes when asked, then died a few days later, only to have the studio cut the scenes anyways. I know that's a wild speculation, but in my opinion, it is backed up. And labeling it as a coincidence is just kind of a cop-out. Like, oh, that's just a coincidence. I don't know about that, but who knows? Small things are connected within this film, like how the red-cloaked man running the ritual double taps his cane on the red carpet. Later on, Bill's wealthy friend Victor Ziegler double taps his pool ball on the red pool table. Or how at the beginning of the movie there's two crossed tennis rackets in Alice's room without a cover. And in Bill's, there's one tennis racket zipped up in a bag. This could mean Bill is in the dark while Alice understands what's going on. Again, Kubrick does not put anything in a scene without a reason. It's a little bit of a stretch, but everything needs to be analyzed. The rackets are also a head nod to Kubrick's other film, Lolita. I'm actually not sure if Kubrick made that movie, but Lolita is about a man who is grooming an underage girl, which reveals another dark truth about the elite world. This movie is from 1999, and Kubrick was a very powerful man in Hollywood. And look at what was revealed in the last, 5 years. It's Kubrick's messaging always focused on revealing the dark truth of the world. This is absolutely no exception. The list of theories about this movie is endless, and you could write an entire book about every single detail in this film. There's so much packed into it. In my opinion, this movie's message is all about the dehumanization of society and the people living in it, us. When you really take a massive step back and observe what we are doing on this planet, we're just biological animals in the very early stages of the evolution of our world, and the animalistic nature is still very, very prevalent in our society. We have not gotten away from that yet. We are animals. The title and phrase "Eyes Wide Shut" suggest that something is hiding in plain sight, or that it's directly in front of somebody's face and they are still refusing to acknowledge it. This can either be talking about the character Bill or talking about us, the audience. So I'll leave you with this question. What truth in your life are you choosing to ignore because it's easier to do so, instead of taking action on it? Thanks for watching. Just thought that I'd plug the end of this video. I run my own company. We deal with all the creativity that goes into podcasting, advertisements, all the audio, visual stuff. So if you or anybody that you know needs help with that, please visit my website, wkwcreative.com, and we can get you set up and we can talk over email. Just shoot me an email and we can chat. Thanks.